Hey guys, good afternoon. So I've started streaming. I'm not sure if I'm live yet. At least on my YouTube, I'm not live. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. I think right now I'm live. Let me see if I can just see myself on the phone so I'll get to know. Okay, there are 2 more minutes. I think I'm early a little bit. Just let's give us 2 more minutes, then we can start. Okay, it is 3 p.m. So I think I might as well start the session. So I think I'm live also. So good afternoon again, everybody. So I hope some of you might have watched the yesterday's session where I did some concepts related to convection, conduction, etc., thermodynamics. We talked about pressure as well, atmospheric pressure, the concept of wind, and I also told you a little bit about how the Indian monsoon system works. Then we also talked about land breeze and sea breeze. Okay, so as you know, we are doing a series on NCERT science and technology. So today I'll take up a few topics from class 8 NCERT. So today I'm going to talk about microorganisms and the concept of immunity, a little bit about diseases. Okay, then we will talk about vaccines. Vaccines are right now in the news. Okay, especially some people do not like vaccines, and there are also certain allegations that these vaccines are resulting in children developing autism. So we'll talk about all of that, how vaccines help in building immunity. What is this concept of memory? Why don't you get chickenpox a second time? Okay, so we'll talk about all these concepts. Then, subject to availability of time, we will talk further about some concepts related to fibers, synthetic fiber, natural fibers, etc. So that's all subject to availability of time. Okay, so let me just start. So before starting, of course, I have to tell you about Unacademy Plus. So where educators like me, so you get unlimited access to all the content by all the top educators of the country. So we comprehensively cover all the topics for your UPSC preparations or for other examinations that you wish to that you aspire to clear. So if you're joining Plus, so I would encourage you to use my referral code. So that is AKM SIVA. Okay. So let's start with class 8 NCERT as promised. So let us talk about microorganisms. What exactly are these microorganisms? What do we mean by microorganisms? From the name itself, it is pretty clear. Micro, that means they are very, very small. Very, very small means you won't be able to see them with your eyes. Right? So that's what these microorganisms or microbes, they are so small in size that they cannot be seen with an unaided eye or a naked eye. Okay, so that means if you're not using microscope or any other instrument for observing these microorganisms, you will not be able to see them. Why? Because they are very, very small. Okay, so microorganisms, they are basically classified into 4 groups. So these are called as bacteria. This is one group. Then we have fungi, then we have protozoa, and we have algae. Okay, so these are all different groups of microorganisms. Okay, so when I say microorganisms, all of them, they share the same feature. They cannot be observed with a naked eye. Okay, so as you can see over here, you have some examples of bacteria over here. Then you have some examples of protozoa. For example, you might know about amoeba, you might know about paramecium. These are all examples of protozoa. Then you have spirogyra. This is an example of algae. Then finally, over here you can see these are examples of fungi. Okay, let me see if I shift that. Okay, so let's talk about viruses. peculiar kind of microorganisms. Okay, viruses, they are also microscopic. They cannot be seen with naked eye again. Okay, so these viruses, they however reproduce only inside the host cell. Okay, so if you ask, is a virus living or dead, that's a very tricky question to ask a virus. Why? Because a virus is pretty much dead. Okay, so if you read the various characteristics of any living organism, one of the characteristic is to reproduce, right? So that is what these viruses, they are completely inactive as long as they are outside the host cell. But once they are inside the host cell, they start multiplying. Okay, they will start multiplying. They will reproduce only inside a host cell. That means as long as they are outside the host cell, they are not really living. But once they are inside the host cell, they start to reproduce simultaneously. Okay, so that is what, that is your virus. So virus, their host organism, it can be animals including human beings. We are hosts to so many viruses. Other animals also. Okay, then plants are also infected by viruses. Plants also host viruses, and even bacteria, even they host viruses. Okay, remember in 2016 a very interesting question was asked about what are the various organisms that can be affected by viruses. Okay, this was a prelims 2016 question if I'm not mistaken. So options were given. First option of course was animals, human beings. Second option was plants, and the third option was bacteria. Okay, so the answer was all three. And where do you think this question was sourced from? The source of this question was none other than your NCERT Class VIII science textbook. Okay, so such simple questions you can easily answer. Okay, because otherwise it might be confusing, because some people, they start to think, I know a few people who got this question wrong, because they thought that, see, virus itself is micro, it's very small, itself is microscopic. So how can it infect another bacterium, which is again a microorganism, which is again microscopic? So if you think and apply logics like this, you are not going to get that right. So you should know these facts, you should know these concepts. That is why you read these NCERTs. Okay, so anyway, common ailments, for example, cold, influenza, that is your flu, most coughs, these are all caused by viruses. Okay, that's what, any viruses has entered your system, so this is how they impact you. Serious diseases, for example, polio. Polio is also caused by a virus, and chickenpox. This is also caused by viruses. Okay, so all these are caused by viruses, disease-causing viruses. Okay, so let's quickly talk about where do these microorganisms live. Okay, I hope I'm still live. Okay, very good. Not getting to know about the battery level, that's why I have to check. Anyway, so where do these microorganisms live? An interesting question. Microorganisms, first of all, they might be single celled. Okay, like bacteria, some algae, protozoa. These are all single cell. That means they are only made up of only one single cell. For example, human beings like us, we are made up of millions and millions of cells together. Okay, so bacteria, for example, they are single cell. That means there is only one cell. Okay, they don't have multiple cells, or they can be multicellular also. For example, if you look at algae, fungi, etc., they can be multicellular. That means they have more than one cells. Okay, so these microorganisms, they are capable of living in all kind of extreme environments. Okay, they can live in any kind of environments, ranging from ice cold climate, that means extremely cold conditions. You go to Siberia, you go to Antarctica, there also you will find that microorganisms are living. On the other hand, you will go to hot springs, hot deserts, the heat, the most hottest of the places on the planet, there also you will see microorganisms are living. You go to marshy areas, where conditions of humidity are very high, over there also you will see that microorganisms are living. Okay, but however, given the current pollution condition in Delhi, I don't know, even over here microorganisms surviving in such extreme conditions is a great doubt, because I'm just living in Delhi and I see outside my house the kind of situation. I strongly believe that even a bacteria cannot survive in these conditions, any microorganism in fact. Anyway, there's this joke that goes around that Delhiites and cockroaches, they are the only organisms that will be left in case there is a nuclear catastrophe. Anyway, jokes apart, so we'll continue. So these microorganisms, they are capable of living under extreme conditions, right? Extreme cold conditions, extreme hot weather conditions. They are also found inside the bodies of animals, including human beings. Okay, these microorganisms, for example, in the human gut, in the human stomach also you can find them, in the livers you can find them. So they are also living inside the bodies of the animals as well. Okay, some of the organisms, they don't require a host, they can also exist freely. Okay, so some of them, they grow on other organisms, like they grow on other organisms, or they require a host and all, or they can also exist freely. Okay, that varies. More organisms like amoeba, sorry, microorganisms like amoeba, they can live alone, while you will see fungi and bacteria, they usually prefer to live in colonies. Colonies means a bunch of these microorganisms, they get together and they live. Okay. So let's talk about friendly microorganisms. Friendly microorganisms means I'm talking about those microorganisms that are useful for human beings in one way or the other. Okay. So over here, as you know, microorganisms, they have been used for the production of alcohol since ages. Okay, we'll be talking about a process that is called as fermentation. Okay, so through this process of fermentation, alcohol etc. is provided. It is produced. Okay, that's so of course they are helpful for us. They are helping us in the production of alcohol. This is a technique that has been known since ages, and for these we are using these microorganisms. Then they are also used in cleaning up of the environment. Okay, microorganisms are useful in cleaning up of environment. How is that? The organic waste, for example, your vegetable peels, remains of animals, feces, etc. These are all broken down into harmless and usable substances by these bacteria. Okay, as you know, all these matter that you are emptying, etc. So this decays over a period of time. They are decomposed by these microorganisms. Okay, so therefore they are helping up clear the environment. For example, human feces, this gets transformed into manure for the crops. How is this being done? We again have to thank the microorganisms. Okay, so that is what. And in the current affairs, you had this oil zappers that were covered in current affairs, right? So this is going to be used for cleaning of oil spills, etc. So oil spills, that is a very huge headache. Okay, when that happens because of accident or for whatever reasons, when oil spill takes place, it's a very big headache for clearing them off. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and it is not possible also to do them, and it creates a lot of ecological imbalances because uh, for a for a long period of time, if it is there like that, it can create anoxia conditions, it can result in dead zones and all. So that is what. So oil zappers, these are microorganisms. They are capable of digesting this oil from the oil spills, and then they will just convert into other kind of gases. So that's again another useful way of cleaning up the environment thanks to microorganisms we have. Then of course, curd, it contains several microorganisms. Of these, there is this bacterium that is lactobacillus. This promotes the formation of curd. Okay, of course, how is curd made, right? So this lactobacillus, it helps in promotion of the formation of curd. It basically, this bacteria, it multiplies in the milk, and it basically converts the milk into curd. Okay, see, they are helping us in production of curd. Again, that's a useful thing microorganisms are doing for us. Then bacteria, they are also involved in the process of making cheese, making pickles, and many other food items. And they are also, for making food items, we are using bacteria. Then yeast, I was just telling you about the commercial production of alcohol and wine. For this, you use yeast. Okay, this involves the process of conversion of sugars into alcohol. This is known as fermentation. Okay, so that is what. So what basically do these yeast cells do in this process of fermentation? What happens is these microorganisms, they will convert sugar into alcohol. Okay, so that is what happens in this process of fermentation. Just try to remember this name. I will be asking you to recall again when we talk about future topics. Okay, where I'll be recalling fermentation. Then we will talk. Then for producing antibiotics, again we are using microorganisms. Okay, so the source of the antibiotics that you have, that is your microorganisms. These medicines, what is this? What do antibiotics do? They will kill or stop the growth of disease causing microorganisms. Okay, if there are disease causing microorganisms in your body, and if you want to kill them or if you want to stop their growth, then you basically take antibiotics. And how are these antibiotics created? How are these antibiotics made? Antibiotics are made using these microorganisms. Okay, such medicines that are used for killing or stopping the growth of bacteria, disease causing microorganisms, or they are also called as pathogens. These are called antibodies. These antibiotics. Okay, I'm so sorry, not antibodies, antibiotics. Antibodies is something else. I will talk to you in a couple of minutes about that. Okay, then for making vaccinations, for the production of vaccinations, again for making vaccinations, you are using microorganisms. Okay, then for enhancing the soil fertility also, we use microorganisms. For example, you might have heard about this blue green algae. This blue green algae is responsible for nitrogen fixation in the soil. Okay, as you know, plants require nitrogen. It's one of the important nutrients for plants. Okay, for their growth and all. So nitrogen is present in the atmosphere, but as you know, the plants, they are not capable of directly taking the nitrogen from the atmosphere and using them. So that is the reason nitrogen fixation has to take place. Okay, where these blue green algae and all, they are responsible for making nitrogen available in a form that can be consumed by the plants. Okay, so that is your nitrogen fixation. That is also done by these by your blue-green algae. So this is basically your algae, that is none other than your microorganism again. Then cyanobacterium, even they are responsible for enhancing the soil fertility, etc. Okay, so these are some of the examples of friendly microorganisms, some of the examples where microorganisms have played a helpful part in our lives. Okay, then as I promised, I'll be dedicating some amount of time to talk about vaccines. Okay, this is very important. How are vaccines made? Why are they created? We will talk a little bit about the immune system and the immunity in this particular topic. So as you know, when a disease carrying microbe, that is pathogen. Okay, whenever I'm using this word pathogen, that means I'm automatically talking about a disease causing microorganisms. So what happens is, when a pathogen it enters into our body, how does our body respond? The immune system, it responds by producing these antibodies. These antibodies are helpful in fighting of the invaders. Okay, so they are helpful in fighting of these invaders. So how do vaccines help? Okay, let's try to understand how these vaccines help. So what happens is, I think I need to make a new slide. Okay, so what happens is, your immune system it has a concept of memory. For example, you might have wondered why there are certain diseases, for example chickenpox. If you get it once in life, you don't get it again. What exactly happens? Okay, so this is what happens. Remember, let's say you get chickenpox once. Okay, chickenpox you got. So your immune system, just a second, my battery is running low. Okay, so as you know, to deal with chickenpox, what happened? Your immune system, it responded. Okay, so immune system, it responded. So what happens is, then this is eliminated, you recover from chickenpox. What happens is, your immune system, when it responded to chickenpox, it basically has developed a memory. Okay, it has developed a memory. It now knows, in case tomorrow again a chickenpox virus comes into the body, similar pathogens come into your body, it exactly knows how to respond. So the second time you are attacked with the same virus, your immune system, it responds in a much better manner. It responds in a more efficient and an effective manner. So that is the reason you don't get certain diseases again. Why? Because of your memory. Okay, because of the memory of the immune system. The immune system remembers. Now let us try to link this concept to the concept of vaccines. Why do we take vaccines? For example, let's say we are taking vaccine for this polio virus. Okay. Of course, if you suffer from polio, you cannot recover again. You might have seen people affected with polio also. It's not possible for you to recover, unlike in case of chickenpox. So what we do, we want to protect children against this polio virus. So what do? Is we take vaccination. Vaccination, what do they do? In vaccination, we will have either an dead polio virus or an inactivated or a weakened polio virus. Okay, so we have a dead polio virus or a weakened polio virus. What do? We inject it. Okay, so when we inject it, so what happens is, your immune system, it responds. Okay, so this is dead or weakened virus, so it is easy for your immune system to throw this virus off, to deal with this virus. But then in this process, what is happening is, when your immune system is responding, it is getting a memory, it is understanding this polio virus. Okay, so it knows how this polio virus looks like and how to deal with this polio virus. Now again, in reality, when you have an actual polio virus, when it enters into your body, your immune system already has a memory, it has a flavor, it has a taste, it knows how to respond to the polio virus. So when the real polio virus hits, then your immune system is able to eliminate that. So that is how vaccines are helpful. So what do you do in a vaccine? You basically use an inactivated, that is a weakened or a dead polio virus or any other virus that you want to protect your body against. So this will give your immune system an idea about the real virus, about the real pathogen. Okay, so your immune system, it knows how to deal with these pathogens. So when the real pathogen comes in, your immune system is already ready. So that is the reason, if you're injected against polio, you will not get polio, most likely. Okay, that's what. Of course, people do that in very rare situations, people do get chicken pox again also. You might have seen such cases also, especially people whose immunity is down, they are susceptible to diseases again and again, right? So that's what, there's no hard and fast rule that if you don't, usually it does not happen. It is very rare that you will get chicken pox again. Okay, now we are talking about a concept called as vaccine induced polio virus. Vaccine induced polio, that means what is happening is, when you are using these polio viruses, okay, so you were using some weakened polio viruses. Now imagine your immune system is not strong enough, or for some reason this weakened polio virus itself is able to cause polio. Okay, so that is how right now this concept of polio, vaccine induced polio is all about. So I'll be taking that up in current affairs section in great detail. I will be telling you, but right now my idea is just to, in very plain simple language, to explain to you what exactly these vaccines are and how are they helpful. Okay, so how do these how does the immune system respond? The immune system responds by producing these antibodies, and these antibodies are responsible for fighting off the invader. Okay, fighting off the pathogen. So that's what, see, I was just telling you, the body, the immune system, it remembers how to fight the microbe if it enters again. That's what, this is the concept of memory of an immune system. Your immune system, it remembers. So next time the same virus attacks, next time the same pathogen attacks, your body responds to it in a much better manner. Okay, so that is what, if a dead or a weakened microbe, they are introduced in a healthy body, the body fights and kills them. Okay, and it will produce suitable antibodies. These antibodies, they remain in the body. So this is the concept of memory. These antibodies that have been produced for fighting off this inactivated or dead pathogen, so these antibodies, they remain in the body. Okay, and we are protected from the disease causing microorganisms. So this is precisely how vaccines work. Okay, let me just see if somebody has any doubts. Just a second, I'm supposed to go to the link. Just give me 1 minute. I'm so sorry, quit the link. I'm so sorry. Just give me a minute. So I'm not really accustomed to teaching on YouTube. Okay, so I think everything is fine. Fine. Anyway, I'll just continue. If you have any doubts, you can just post them over there. So I'm still not accustomed. So if it is the Plus platform, then people usually respond and I can see the comments simultaneously also. But over here, it's a little different. I'm literally sharing my screen with you. So whatever I can see, you can also see. So anyway, let's move forward. Okay, so this is the concept of your vaccines. This is how precisely your vaccinations they work. Okay, so just try to remember these terms: antibodies, immune system, memory of immune system, etc. Okay, so let's now talk about harmful microorganisms, and remember these concepts are very important to you when I am going to be discussing current affairs with you. Okay, over there I will be using these terminologies, so it would be better that you remember all these terminologies at that point of time. Okay, so anyway, so let's talk about harmful microorganisms. Some of the microorganisms cause diseases in human beings, plants, and animals. Such disease-causing microorganisms, they are called as pathogens. I already familiarized you with this particular term. The disease-causing microorganisms, they are called as pathogens. Okay, as you know, some microorganisms, they spoil our food, they spoil our clothing, they spoil the leather, etc. Okay, you might have seen all of this happening. So these are harmful microorganisms, and as you know, the worst thing is these microorganisms, they are responsible for causing diseases. Okay, so that's what pathogens, they enter into our body. How do they enter? They enter into the body through the air that we breathe, through the water that we drink, or through the food that we eat. These are various ways in which the microorganisms are going to enter into our body. They can also get transmitted by direct contact with an infected person or carried through an animal. Okay, for example, right now you might have heard about this zoonotic diseases. Okay, so these are diseases that are transferred. For example, this Nipah virus, this get transferred from animals to human beings. These are called as zoonotic diseases. Okay, so that means these are diseases that you acquire from animals. For example, rabies you get if you are bitten by an infected dog, right? So that's what. So these can be transmitted with direct contact with an infected person. For example, having sexual contact with a person with AIDS, okay, or such kind of things. And tuberculosis, that is also a communicable disease that you can get infected by engaging, by being in contact with such a person, okay, or you can also be spread through the animals, as I just explained to you. So microbial diseases, they can spread from an infected person to a healthy person. For example, I'm not suffering from anything right now, so if I'm engaging with certain person who's infected with a particular disease, and thanks to this particular interaction I get the disease, such a disease is called as a communicable disease. Okay, so these diseases, they can be spread through air, through water, through food, or through physical contact like shaking hands, or maybe sexual contact. So in these ways, these diseases can be spread from one person to the other. Okay, so these such diseases are called as your communicable diseases. Examples of such diseases, for example, you have cholera, you have common cold, very this is pretty common example, right? Your common cold is something that spreads very quickly from one infected person to the other, right? Then chicken pox, this is another one. If your family member, one of the members gets chicken pox, then it quickly spreads to the other person also, right? Then tuberculosis, these are all communicable diseases. Okay, then other diseases that do not spread like this, those are called as non-communicable diseases. Okay, there are some insects and animals which act as carriers of disease causing microorganisms. For example, for dengue or for malaria, etc., these female anopheles mosquito. Okay, these fruit bats, they are carriers of certain diseases, right? Certain disease causing microorganisms. So that is what these are all called as carriers. Okay, they themselves are usually not affected or impacted by these microorganisms, but when they transmit it to us, we get affected by that. Okay, so that is what. And just have a look at this table, so you don't have to remember each and everything. So whatever is in the news you need to remember, but just try to remember human diseases. Just say tuberculosis, what is it caused by and what is the mode of transmission. For example, you can get tuberculosis. This is something, we are literally the tuberculosis capital of the world. Okay, and we are also endemic to tuberculosis. So literally, I think more than 50% of the population, they might have this latent TB virus. Okay, we are endemic to it, so that's what they have, this latent TB. So India mein, we don't even have treatment for latent TB. It's only for when it becomes active we usually treat. So that's what. So anyway, TB, tuberculosis, this is caused by a bacteria, and this usually spreads through air. Then we have measles, that is caused by a virus. This spreads through air. Then chickenpox, I just gave you this example, it spreads through virus. It's a virus, it is caused by a virus. It can spread through air or it can spread through contact. Then polio, it's again virus, and of course water, drinking contaminated water and all. So this is the reason you see polio, people of the low income group, especially the poor and the weaker sections of the society, they are suffering from issues like this. Okay, then cholera, this is caused by a bacteria. Okay, mode of transmission is either through food or water. Then typhoid, this is caused again by a bacteria, and this is through water. Hepatitis B, this year question related to hepatitis was asked. This is caused by a virus, and the mode of transmission is water. And then finally we have malaria. Of course, malaria, the mode of transmission is mosquito, right? That's what. And then this malaria, this is caused by a protozoa. Remember, it's not by a virus or a bacteria, it is caused by a protozoa. Okay, just try to remember what are the diseases and what are the causative microorganisms behind it. Okay, so just try to remember, this is all basic information. So in your for eliminating, they are very useful, especially in the prelims examination. Most of the times you don't know exactly the answer, so through eliminations you have to work. So for elimination and all, it's easily, you can easily do that. For example, hepatitis B, this year there was a question. So if it is caused by a virus, and but one particular statement, it says that it is caused by a bacteria, so of course you know it to be false, so you can always eliminate that statement, and then reduce the number of options that you have. So anyway, let's talk about natural and synthetic fibers. Okay, fibers, of course you know what fibers are. We are wearing fibers, right? We are wearing fibers. For example, natural fibers like cotton, wool, silk, etc., these are used for making your clothes. Okay, so when we say natural fibers, that means these are all naturally available. They are obtained from the nature. That means they are obtained either from plants or they are obtained from animals. For example, cotton, you have cotton plants. Wool, this is obtained from sheep. Silk, this is by rearing the silkworms, okay, on the mulberry bush and all. So that's what, these are all examples of natural fibers. Okay, cotton, wool, silk, these are either obtained from plants or they are obtained from animals. On the other hand, now there are some things that are called as synthetic fibers. What do you mean by synthetic? That means something that is synthesized. Synthetic fibers, on the other hand, these are made by human beings. That means synthetic fibers, they are not natural fibers, they are made by human beings in a laboratory. Okay, so that is why these are called as synthetic fibers, because they are synthesized, or they are also called as man-made fibers. Okay, so let's talk about the different types of synthetic fibers that we have. We have something called as rayon. Okay, rayon, this is a fiber that has properties that is similar to that of silk. Okay, so people are using it as a replacement for silk. This is cheaper than silk also. Okay, so that is what. Remember, a long time ago, silk, it used to be, and now also of course it's a costly product. Earlier, 7,000 years ago, when the silk route was there, it was one of the most guarded secrets of China, right? So only they knew how to make this silk. So that is the reason it was so valuable. It was something that was only worn by the rich people, and the rich people, the elites, the kings, and similar nobles, etc. So that's what silk was, such a highly valued commodity, such a highly valued fabric. Okay, highly valued fiber. So anyway, this rayon, it has properties that is similar to that of silk. This fiber, it is basically obtained by chemical treatment of wood pulp. Okay, you do a chemical treatment of wood pulp, you basically get this. This is so fine. This is so fine that it is even called as artificial silk. Okay, so this is what is your rayon. Then next you have is nylon. This is prepared from coal, water, and air. This is the first fully synthetic fiber that was ever created by human beings. Okay. You, of course, nylon ropes, etc. You might see this is your nylon. Then you have polyester. Polyester. This is another synthetic fiber. Okay. Fabric made from this fiber does not get wrinkled easily. Polyester clothes, I'm sure most of you are wearing polyester clothes also. One of the advantages, the fabric, the cloth that you make from this does not get wrinkled so easily. Okay. It remains crisp, and it also is very, very easy to wash. A lot of clothes are also made using polyester. Then some sweaters, shawls, or blankets that we use in winters. Earlier, people used to wear woolen clothes. Wool is again pretty costly. So some sweaters, shawls, or blankets that are used in winters. Many of these are actually not made from natural wool. Though they appear to resemble wool, though they look like wool. They look like wool as if it is made of wool. These are prepared from another type of synthetic fiber that is called as acrylic. Okay, you might have heard this name, acrylic. So this is used for making some wool looking like some fabrics or some clothes that look pretty much and resemble wool. Okay, so as you can see, these are synthetic fibers, and you can see how easily they are replacing the natural fibers. Okay, let's talk about plastics very quickly now, since we are talking about synthesizing synthetic fibers and all. Let's talk about plastics. Plastics, as you know, they are easily be moldable. That means you can mold them easily. You can shape them into any form that you want. You can shape them into a chair, into a table, etc. So that's what. And also remember, plastics, they can be recycled, they can be reused, they can be colored, they can be melted, they can be rolled into sheets, or they can even be made into wires. You can mold them in any form you want. It is easy to shape them in any form that you want. Plastics that get deformed easily on heating and can be bent easily, these are called as thermoplastics. Okay, thermoplastics. So basically, certain plastics, what happens is these can be deformed easily on heating. You can deform them easily, and they can be bent easily on heating. These are called as thermoplastics. For example, you have polythene, you have PVC, polyvinyl chloride. So these are some of the examples of thermoplastics. These are used for manufacturing toys, they are used for manufacturing combs and various types of containers. Okay, so these are your thermoplastics. What do? They get deformed easily on heating. On the other hand, you have certain plastics which, when molded once, they cannot be softened by heating. So you gave it a shape like this, for example, this pen. Okay, imagine this is made of a thermosetting plastic. So that means you gave it this shape. You heat however much you want. It is not easy for you to soften this material by heating. Okay, these are called as thermosetting plastics. Two examples of thermosetting plastics, they are bakelite and melamine. Okay, so these are your examples of thermosetting plastics. Right. So thermosetting plastics, as I was telling you, let's talk about bakelite, an example. Bakelite happens to be a poor conductor of heat and electricity. Okay, it's a very bad conductor of heat and electricity. It does not allow heat to flow through easily. It does not allow electricity to flow through easily. It is used for making electrical switches, handles of various utensils, etc. Imagine, for example, you are pressing the switch. The switch has to be made from an insulator or a bad conductor. Imagine this switch is made up of silver, or this switch is made up of another good conductor of electricity. So when you press the switch, you will also get a shock, no? You will also get an electric shock. So that is the reason these switches, they have to be made by non-conductors, by bad conductors of electricity. Similarly, handles of various utensils. Imagine this is your utensil, okay, and you are heating this. If this particular handle, this is made up of a conductor, this heat will get transferred here also, so you will not be able to hold the handle. So that is the reason this handle should be made from a non-conductor, from a poor conductor of heat. So that is why over here, bakelite, being a very poor conductor of heat and electricity, it finds applications in making switches, it finds application in making handles of various utensils. Okay, then we have melamine. This is another thermosetting plastic. This is also a very versatile material. It is capable of resisting fire, and it can also tolerate heat much better than other plastics. Okay, so that is the reason you will see this is used for making floor tiles, it is used for making kitchenware, it is used for making fabrics which resist fire. Okay, for example, the clothes and all that is worn by the firemen, so that also is made up of these particular melamine. Okay, the fabrics. Okay, so let's just quickly talk about the reasons for popularity of plastics. I think you can easily tell this on your own. So as you know, they are lightweight, they are priced very low, they are not very costly, that is a good price. Easily they are able to they are easy to handle, it's not difficult to handle them or carry them and all. Plastics, they are also non-reactive. For example, I have this plastic chair, I'm sitting on this plastic chair, this will remain like this only. Imagine this is made of iron, then it might get rusted. So there is no rusting or any other reaction that takes place. So that's what plastics, they are non-reactive. They don't react with water, they don't react with air. Okay, you throw water also, nothing happens to it, it will remain like this only. This can be molded into different shapes and sizes. Yes, as I told you, you can change the shape of it, you can change the size, etc. Do all sort of things. Plastics are poor conductors of heat and electricity. So that's what plastics, they are being a very poor conductor of heat and electricity, they have multiple applications. So these are some of the reasons why the plastics are very, very popular. Okay, so these are some concepts that I discussed from the class 8 NCERT. Just try to remember the first half that we discussed about microorganisms, vaccines, etc. They are very, very important. The modus operandi is very, very important, because when I discuss current affairs with you guys, these concepts, small, small concepts on your NCERTs, they become very, very important. Okay, so I will be coming live time and again to teach more topics with you, to discuss more interesting topics with you. We're just doing NCERTs. In the future, I will discuss many concepts from current affairs. For example, I was thinking I'll discuss this concept of quantum supremacy with you. Okay, so that's what I look forward to seeing you all. So thank you so much. I think we can call it a day. My half an hour is up. So I'll see you guys in the next class. You will be notified whenever the next class is. Thank you so much. Have a good day. See you soon. Bye bye.